This segment of DelmarvaLife is sponsored by For All Seasons Behavioral Health and Rape Crisis Center.
How would you feel if someone told you they needed to give you some feedback? Would you get uncomfortable thinking you're about to be judged for something? Maybe you'd think someone was about to sing your praises. Either way, our emotions shape the way we handle feedback. And being more open and resilient to it can be highly beneficial. And we are with Beth Ann Dorman, the CEO of For All Seasons Behavioral Health and Rape Crisis Center. Welcome, Beth Ann.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, feedback.
We all love it.
We all love it. Why do you think that feedback, whether it is praise or criticism, can be so difficult for people?
Well, it's personal, right? When you're receiving feedback, there is something that someone is sharing with you, whether it be good or whether it be bad feedback or whether it be constructive feedback, as we call it now. But it can hit a piece of us that might not be ready to hear it for whatever reason. You know, if it's negative feedback, it might be that we are not ready to take it in. If it's positive feedback, we might be uncomfortable getting that feedback from someone. And so we have to really pay attention to our emotions and how we are prepared or not to be able to receive that feedback.
Right. And personal experience kind of weighs into how we
absolutely.
take that feedback.
100%. The way that we have experienced feedback in the past, the way that feedback has been given, the consequences or the results of the feedback and how we have internalized that, the way that we've been raised, all of these things have a way of playing in when feedback is happening. You know, if you're at a new job and you have a new boss and there hasn't been trust established and feedback is given in a way that maybe somebody else used to give it to you that really wasn't a helpful person in your life, that's going to be received much differently than if you or I were sitting here and you were saying, hey, Beth Ann, I've got some feedback. You know, we've got a relationship established and there's a trust between us where I could probably take feedback better from you than I could from someone who I'd never met before.
Sure. Now, you mentioned humility is really important when we're getting that feedback. So do you have some, I guess, practical strategies to develop that skill?
Yeah. You know, one of the things is really making sure that we are prepared. Are we coming into a conversation? If feedback is something that we need, can we sit back and be able to say, okay, let me break this down. While this might be something that I'm taking personally, is this the experience that I have had with the person who's providing feedback? Does it really make sense that this person is trying to cause harm or make me feel shame? Or is it that there's something to be able to grow from? And we have to really kind of check our ego when feedback is given, because if we're coming at it that we've got it all together and we have all the answers, then we can't find humility. So some of it is about, let's just really sit back and think about the bigger picture and how the feedback is given. And especially when it's positive feedback, if we are someone who just says, oh, it's fine, oh, thanks anyway, I don't want to hear it. It is okay for people to say, hey, you're doing a great job. And for us to be able to just sit and say, wow, that was a really great feedback comment that I've received, and be able to sit in that space.
And then, of course, there's negative feedback. How can someone build resilience and use emotional awareness to handle it?
Yeah, so one of the things that we talk about with emotional awareness and resilience in feedback is that we have to make sure that our response and how we are taking in the feedback matches who we are. So thinking about our values, thinking about our emotional capacity. If you're receiving feedback and you're not prepared for it, it's about saying, can we circle back on this? I'm not in a great place to have this conversation. Now, in the ideal world, that's not going to be possible every time. And so in those moments, thinking through, how do I need to respond? Do I need to just take a beat? Do I need to take a pause? If you're somebody who has a tendency to kind of shout back or fly back with an answer right away, giving ourselves this space to say, just sit and be still. Being able to also then use your resiliency to circle back to conversations and say, hey, this was a really difficult piece of information. Can we talk about what you shared? I need some more information, because that will help our brains process. In the unknowns of why the feedback is being given, we're going to make up a lot of stories that most times are not true.
We're easy to jump on the defense. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, what advice would you give to someone who wants to create a culture of constructive feedback?
Trust. has to be in place in order for feedback to be given and heard in a direction of this is for the betterment of all of us. And so, you know, if there's feedback to be given, whether it's to a child or to someone at the workplace, if there is not a trust established, are you the right person to be giving that feedback? And if you're not, how do you start to create an environment? So some of it might be the words. Instead of saying, like, that was not what I wanted out of you, and, you know, I gave you a project and these results aren't good, maybe looking at it differently and saying, hey, could we revisit how we got to this place within the project? I'd like to share with you some of the assumptions that I had going in, and maybe I didn't give clear direction. I think some of it works, but I'd like to be able to get to a different place. There's much more openness versus you've done a bad job. So we have to be thinking about how we are talking with folks, and we have to be also making sure that we ourselves are not giving feedback in a fly off the handle kind of moment. If you are not fit to text, talk, or email because you've been alerted that your system is a little bit hyped, take an opportunity to take a step back, circle back the next day, wait an hour, go take a walk, so that we are also presenting something in a way where feedback can be heard.
It's amazing how time can make you a little better at receiving.
That pause and that stillness becomes so important.
Thank you so much, Beth Ann Dorman
Thank
with
you.
For All Seasons.